big news on the day because the NFL don't stop, going, right?
65, man.
That's right. There's always something happening, sometimes small. This is one of those days where it was big as there was a monster trade that happened in the NFL. Big name that is reminiscent of one of the names you're familiar with is Stefon Diggs, brother of Trayvon Diggs, will be moving. Still in the AFC, oddly enough. He'll go from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. And this almost served as a putting people on notice, on top of the putting people on notice, because the Texans obviously went to the playoffs, right? Went from worst to first in their. Did they win that division? I believe they won that division. Yeah, first of their division. And they get a lot of pub. They go and they play very well.
Quarterback's legit.
Quarterback looks good.
Little rookie quarterback that showed out.
Offseason, they spent a lot of money.
They said, let's all in. Oh, no, they didn't say that.
I don't think that they use exactly those words. But
their actions prove that.
Because
they didn't have to say.
As we know, actions, mean
speak louder than words.
Speaks louder than words. And of course, they punctuated in a way with going and getting a big time player in Stefon Diggs, a big time player, mind you, that for the Bills served as a punctuation mark on "we're here now," right? Because that was when you had the Bills and Josh Allen when they really took off.
Right.
They went and got Stefon Diggs, and so with that being the case, that made me sit up and think. Right, and again, 877-881-1053. With the way that organization is going, are the Texans passing the Cowboys as an organization? Because look, the Texans have been around since what, 03? Oh no, 01, 02? Somewhere in there, right? Early odds. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And ever since their time, you tell me if I'm wrong, CA, they've been a little brother.
They have, because they're the new kids on the block. They're the expansion team. But guess what they did? Their first game, they made a statement. They beat the Cowboys. Their first game in history, I was at that game.
Mm-hmm.
It was down there in Reliant. And you got me, what the hell? Jerry was so mad he couldn't see straight. That's the one game he wanted to make sure that they won. He didn't want that to stand forever in time that, guess what? Their very first victory ever was against the Dallas Cowboys. And you're saying, have they passed the Dallas Cowboys? This is 2024, right?
Yes, sir. Unless I was reading the calendar wrong.
No.
Okay.
Both teams made it to the playoffs, but the Texans won their game, and they upset the Cleveland Browns. So in other words, right now as we speak, they did more than the Cowboys did this past offseason, or this season, let alone this offseason as we're talking about right now. Forget what the Cowboys haven't done in the offseason. They did more in the playoffs this year than the Cowboys have. Have they passed them as far as the dynasty or the Super Bowl rings or the fan base? No. But guess what? They're making a lot of people happy right now.
And I think that's the interesting part of this, right? Because I think even a year ago on the calendar, people would have looked at a question like this and said, you are insane, right?
Yeah.
Because
this is before the quarterback.
And that's in part because of the team, right? And you talked about it. Maybe the team itself, like the football players on the field, past the Cowboys. I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people would be okay with that. As a franchise, absolutely not, right? Like the franchise overall, the history just is not going to touch the Cowboys.
These are not the Oilers.
Right, exactly.
These are the Texans, the expansion Texans.
But that's why I brought it back to that particular word of organization, right? Because when we talk about the organization, the front office, the way that this team gets built, the way that it operates and moves, I'm starting to have a wonder, because there was a point in time, again, not very long ago, where that was a laughingstock, not just as a team, but as an organization. Let me take you back to Jack Easterby. The former chaplain. I could take you even further back. You remember when they had their head coach usurp power and then trade their best wide receiver and all those types of things happening?
O'Brien.
Right?
Yeah, Bill O'Brien ran off the best receiver and J.J. Watt. J.J. said, this guy's crazy.
Yep.
Let me out of here. And J.J. Watt is Mr. Houston. He's the one who raised all that money for the, not the hurricane relief, but the big rain, we call it tropical storm relief.
Yeah.
$300 million, man. JJ.
I think that was that Ida, Hurricane Ida?
Whatever it was a hurricane that didn't quite hurricane. It just kept on raining and it flooded people out of their homes. And JJ Watt came in there and raised all that money. And what does he get out of this? That damn Bill O'Brien ran him off. And so they were a mess.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the things, the reason why I begin bringing this up is that now you're seeing, and look, it's not sustained, right? Swaggy Booties on the Twitch says, you need to see results first. Remember when the Broncos looked like a better organization when they traded for Russ? Okay, I hear you.
Wait. We've had some results. They won their freaking playoff game, Swaggy.
That's right.
I'm just saying, just right now, if you're saying, how did their season go? First of all, a year ago, they drafted the correct quarterback. Okay? And remember, when Lovie Smith, they told him, we ain't going to keep you. He said, well, let's win the last game.
Right. And as an organization,
And
that's weird.
Messed them out of the easiest quarterback. Guess what? They still got the right quarterback.
That's a lack of synergy between the entirety of the organization, which is dysfunction, right?
People did not like that entire scenario, but that was par for the course because that's the way they had been running things for about 5 or 6 years.
And then you bring it around now, and they have fully empowered their general manager, Nick Caserio.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think that this is a plausible thought is they went and they got a coach that understands the modern NFL.
That's right.
And DeMeco Ryans.
DeMeco is the coach of the year in my mind.
DeMeco Ryans is a fantastic coach that understands what needs to be done. And then also he has the connections to bring in very good supporting cast members. When we talk about Bobby Slowick was a big name that they managed to keep another year. He has a little bit of youth to him. He's still going to season as a play caller, but clearly he did a very good job, right? And then on top of that, they went and they really invested. They got the quarterback. And when they looked at the quarterback and saw that the quarterback is a dog, right? Yeah. Is a very good quarterback in this league and understands what he's doing. What they've done in this offseason has made it very apparent that they are going to invest in a good team and push forward. And I'm sorry to use the phrase because we're all tired of it, but push their chips.
We understand what they're talking
into
about.
The center of the table. See what I did there?
They're going for it.
Right? And
they're going for, you know what? We're gonna make some noise. And you mentioned the wide receiver just this offseason with Stefon Diggs.
Yeah.
They did something low key last summer that turned out to be a solid move. They said, okay, we got this young quarterback. Let's get him a automatic safety valve. Dalton Schultz, you're not making no money. Come on down here. So Dalton Schultz left the Cowboys last offseason and landed on his feet with the Houston Texans. And at the time, everybody was like, man, Dalton Schultz should have took the Cowboys money a year ago because, he had to take a lesser offer. But guess what? He went further than the Cowboys did because the Houston Texans knocked off the heavily favored Cleveland Browns. The heavily favored, and beat them bad. It wasn't like they barely beat them, got lucky. No, they beat them bad. So there's a lot of excitement and joy down there, whereas here in Dallas-Fort Worth or around the world where the Cowboy fans are all over the place, they're like, what the hell? That's what everybody's thinking right now. What's on everybody's mind is, what the hell?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously today we got the news that Chuma Edoga will be re-signing, played tackle primarily, but he's capable of playing guard. He's re-signing to a 1-year contract. I'm seeing that at least per Michael Gelkin. Obviously, that's made its rounds elsewhere. But I mean, obviously there were people that were looking at this punctuation mark that the Texans made with this Stefon Diggs, and you could look at the ways that they went and spent on Danielle Hunter and Danico Autry and some other guys that I'm not remembering off the top of my head in this moment. And you can maybe try and do some level of analog to 2017, right? In 2017, you look up and you go, okay, Dak Prescott is definitely the quarterback of this team.
This is following his rookie year. This spring is 2017. His rookie year was 2016.
And I know that you have had this same point when it comes to this Cowboys team, CA personally, and others have had it, which is when especially when we talk about quarterbacks on a rookie deal, that you have this quarterback.
You have to.
And going back to 2017, do you feel like this Cowboys team properly maximized that opportunity?
No. Here he was making, 2017, he was making less than $2 million a year. His last couple of years on his rookie deal, it was $2 million a year. Not $40 million, not $20 million, not $15 million, not $5 million, $2 million. They did not do everything possible to maximize that. They had a two-headed monster. They had the running back. By the way, that's when they started losing ground with their offensive line. Different play. Doug Freeze out of there. I forget. Oh boy, that they didn't pay him his money, and I forget. He always Zeke ran behind him all the time. I forget his name. But all they kept was Tyron and Zach Martin. It was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to have more depth than that. And the defense they just nickeled and dimed it, and we're not going to even go on to TJ Watt. I can go on and on what they didn't do, but they didn't. Only thing they could say is a little bit in the draft, they leaned too heavily on Will McClay because Will McClay came through quite a bit, but that TJ Watt miss, Will McClay may try to take the hit for it, but that was not him. That was the defensive coordinator who insisted on Taco Charlton.
And it felt like it went even worse because wasn't 18 the season where they tried to go wide receiver by committee?
Yes.
And
they lost ground on that.
Yeah.
The fact the coaching staff was going to be fired unless they had traded for Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper saved the staff from being fired right on the spot because at the end of the season, they were gone, coming up with that wide receiver by committee mess.
And so the reason why this question comes up, we saw the Texans on a fairly good offseason really lean into trying to make this team better. And there's a lot of frustration out there when it comes to this Cowboys and this Cowboys organization. And you have we know it's a little bit of a drive from here to Houston, but it's considered your neighbors. And I think there's a lot of people looking around and going, uh-oh, the Texans might be the best team in Texas. And that is something that I don't think any Cowboys fan would have seen or would have foreseen at any point over the last 20 years. You know
what's so crazy? They actually had a run when Deshaun Watson was scandal-free. He might have been doing the things he was doing with the different massage therapists, but we didn't know about it. At the time, they had a halftime lead over the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs that they blew. Bill O'Brien didn't know how to coach. They blew that lead. Had they beaten the Kansas City Chiefs with Deshaun Watson, that team might have gone even further. So it's not like they have sucked. They actually had a little bit of run in them, but then again, Bill O'Brien got full of himself after that little particular season. And that's when he ran off the wide receiver.
Amari Cooper.
Yeah. No.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about the Texans. You're talking about DeAndre Hopkins.
D-Hop. Ran off D-Hop and ran off J.J. Watt. And that was the beginning of the end for Bill O'Brien, who thought he was the de facto general manager as well. What allowed them to be in the position they are in today is they fleeced the Cleveland Browns for Deshaun Watson. Cleveland was so hungry for a quarterback that they gave everything, first-round picks out the wazoo, and then overpaid Deshaun to even stay there. So everybody thought, okay, Houston still got to figure out what to do with it, but they don't know what they're doing. Guess what? They know what they're doing.
And, of course, it's right. We do need to see the results of this and see them sustain this, but it's a question that I ask not because it's absolutely there, but because the Cowboys need to have a full evaluation of how they're operating, right? And this is something you talk about all the time. It doesn't feel like they utilize all of the tools available to you.
To me, you got to do that. If you're going to win, you can't just say we're a draft and development team. That's one part of the equation. You got to use everything in your toolbox. You've got to use trades. You've got to use signing key free agents. You got to do it all. You got to fortify your roster when you know you're good. And they haven't done that this year. And they haven't even kept all of their own.
And it feels like they have not been great about doing that consistently and at least making the most when they do some level of moves. And so as an organization, I think that this is something that has to be a wake-up call for you to make sure that, hey, you're not getting lapped. You're not getting passed because there are other teams in this league, teams that recently you could look at that were in your state, in your backyard in sorts, that you looked at as laughingstocks that are actively making teams that very well could be better than yours.
In fact, the team that used to live here in Dallas, the Kansas City Chiefs, used to be the Dallas Texans.
They done won how many Super Bowls at this point?
And been to 6 straight AFC Championship games. The Hunt family still live here in Dallas, but they moved to Kansas City to make room for the Cowboys. And the Dallas Texans, notice I didn't say Houston Texans. Yeah. The Dallas Texans are dominating the world right now. They have a dynasty. They're going for the three-peat. No team in NFL history has ever done a three-peat. And guess what? They're in position to do that. They're in position. I'm not going to say they will, but they're in position. Whereas the Cowboys, they're just not. They refuse to fortify the roster with all of the weapons at their disposal. Every trick in the book. We're talking about free agent signings, trades, and draft and develop. They just refuse to do all of them at the same time.
For me personally,
it's a shame too. It's a shame.
For me personally, the Texans are on the footing to pass the Cowboys as a better organization, especially since they've empowered the right people. They're making smart decisions. Cowboys got to get on their stuff, man. And it starts now. It starts with making sure that obviously you have to have a good draft. That's just obvious. But then going forward, you have to be very, deliberate with the decisions you make, because it feels like there's been a lot of waste around the edges for the Cowboys. And the NFL, man, there's only 32 teams, and the more that get better, that means someone got to get worse in those instances.
I hope the Houston Texans do what Jerry Jones has threatened to do around the Star and back in the day Valley Ranch. Every time the Cowboys would have a bad year, he'd say, I'm about to make things a little uncomfortable for some people. So I hope those Houston Texans make those people in the Frisco area a little more uncomfortable.